Alright guys, this is math lesson 92 for the 5th grade math. This is finding the greatest common factor. We normally call it the GCF. This lesson should have come before lesson 91, but nonetheless it's kind of a review. So a couple things to be mindful of before practicing it in the actual lesson is, number one, remember what a factor is. A factor is, any number that divides evenly into another number. And so when we're finding the greatest common factor, or the GCF, we are simply looking for the biggest number that's the same on all of the lists of factors that we're comparing. So there are a couple basic steps. I say a couple. There are 3 basic steps that we follow in order to find the greatest common factor. We kind of went through it quickly on lesson 91. So we're going to go over it again here in a little bit slower of a fashion. So step 1, list the factors on paper, or you can do it mentally. We would prefer you to be able to do it mentally, but if you need to do it on paper, that's fine as well. Step 2, find all the common factors. In other words, all the factors that are matching numbers. And then last step, locate the biggest or the greatest factor, common factor, whatever's the same or matching. We're looking for the biggest numbers that match. Alright, so what that's going to look like in practice is, for the first example, you can see there it says find the greatest common factor of 8 and 20. So we're going to do this slowly and actually write everything out. So for the factors for 8, these are numbers that divide evenly into 8. We know it's 1, 2, 4, and 8. For 20, we know that the numbers that divide evenly into 20 is 1, of course. Everyone starts with 1. But 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. Alright, so that's step 1. We list the factors, again, either on paper, or if you can do this in your head, that's fine too. And then we, step 2, we look for all the common factors. So we're looking to see what's the same in both groups of numbers. So we can see the 1 here is the same, the 2's, and the 4's are the same. And then step 3, very, very simple. We look to see what's the biggest out of all those common factors, and then of course we can clearly see it's 4. So we write on the side GCF, or the greatest common factor, is 4. And then we always circle or box the final answer. So we do it again, or not necessarily again, but the next example says use the greatest common factor of 8 and 20 to reduce 8 over 20. So we've already found the greatest common factor here between 8 and 20. So we're going to, I guess we can do it right here on the side. But remember, when we reduce, we're dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the greatest common factor, which was 4. Yesterday we did it in this fashion, 4 over 4. Okay, so 8 divided by 4 is going to give us 2. And 20 divided by 4 will give us 5. Now, when we look at the fraction, anytime we reduce, or anytime we have a fraction for an answer for that matter, we always look to see if we can reduce it any farther. So we think of 2 and we think of 5, and we simply go through and see what the factors are for 2 and what the factors are for 5. So going through mentally, or out loud without having to write it, factors for 2 are 1 and 2, factors for 5, 1 and 5. Greatest common factor is 1, so when we get to 1, we're done. Which means 2/5 is lowest terms already for us. We move on. The next example says find the greatest common factor and reduce. So 2 different layers of work what we're doing here. So for 6 and for 9, we list out the factors. First of all, for 6, what divides evenly into 6? The factors, of course, every number starts with 1. And then there is 2, 3, and 6. For 9, the factors for 9 are 1, 3, and 9. We see that the common factors, of course, are 1 and 3, The biggest one in that number, of course, in those two lists, excuse me, is 3. So we go down to this fraction down here. We divide numerator and denominator by that greatest common factor, which would be 3 over 3. And then 6 divided by 3 is going to give us 2. 9 divided by 3 will give us 3. And of course we do a mental check really quickly. 2/3. Greatest common factor between 2 and 3 is 1. So we're done. We go to the next example. It says 6 and 12. So again, we list out the factors for 6. And we go 1, 2, 3, and 6. And for 12, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Got a lot of common factors in here, as we can see the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and the 6s are common. The greatest in that group would be 6, so we take that to our fraction, and we divide numerator and denominator by 6. 6 divided by 6 will give us 1. 12 divided by 6 gives us 2. And of course we do a mental check. 1/2. Greatest common factor is 1. And we're done. Lastly, we've got 15 and 21. So we write the factors. And the factors for 15 would be 1, 3, 5, and 15. For 21, we've got 1, 3, 7, and 21. Common factors, 1 and 3. Greatest in that group is 3, so we're going to take that greatest common factor and divide numerator and denominator by 3. 15 divided by 3 gives us 5. 21 divided by 3 gives us 7. And of course we mentally check, can we bring that any lower, reduce it any farther? No, the greatest common factor between 5 and 7 is 1, and we're done. So, a review lesson on finding the greatest common factor.